IndyCar Radio on the IMS Radio Network.
The lead is down to 2.5 car lengths. Helio Castroneves looking for 2 in a row. Paul Tracy has him in his sights.
Oh, the qualifying struggle for Team Green, but boy, Paul Tracy looking good right now. And Craig's back in 2 as Tracy tries to make the pass to the north. Then he heads toward Princeton area. Action is on the speedway.
And Paul Tracy has made the pass. He's gotten around Castroneves. Mikey, heads your way.
Paul Tracy will take the yellow flag. It looks like he will win the Indianapolis 500 as the yellow and white are displayed.
Yes, we can see him now, and he's right down to that white line on this lap, too, as he streaks through here, right up onto the back stretch, and in just a second or so, Bernie Herman should be able to see. Okay, Howard, here comes Parnelli now, the Torrance man from California. White helmet, blue visor, and I'm sure he's going to be a very, very happy guy. And down to you, Mikey Hurst. Okay, Bernie, we've got it. Here comes Parnelli. Shows he's fast as he gets around me here. By Roger McCluskey. McCluskey spins there in the corner. Hold it. We've got one car going around and he's sideways. The same spot that Eddie Sachs was. McCluskey right there. He's okay. He's sitting in his car. The cars are coming around him. We'll follow. See if it's all right. They're all going on the inside. McCluskey halfway through the turn. Sideways. The exact same spot where Eddie Sachs was just a few minutes ago. Now they're running under the yellow flag. Jones went around it a moment ago. McCluskey passed him on the
And there's the checkered flag for Parnelli Jones, the winner of the 1963 500-mile race.
As they come onto the main stretch, it's Mario Andretti being chased by Danny Sullivan. Sullivan darts out, pulls alongside Mario Andretti. It's a drag race down the main stretch. Can Sullivan pull Andretti into the first turn? Ron Carroll.
It is Danny Sullivan gets him. Danny Sullivan gets him. No, he's whirling. No, he's spinning. Danny Sullivan spins, but he goes around twice and gathers it.
Absolutely incredible. Danny Sullivan spun in front of Mario Andretti, gathered the car back up and continues on, and Sullivan only fell back to second place. Larry Henry, they're coming to you.
Well, this is reminiscent of Roberto Guerrero a year ago with Roberto Guerrero's spot and kept going. Here comes Mario Andretti now. Here's Danny Sullivan after that spin. He'll have to change tires, but what a job of driving by the man from Louisville, Kentucky, Danny Sullivan.
Absolutely unbelievable. Danny Sullivan got past Andretti in the short chute and then lost control of it. And he spun the car completely, but he caught it, regained control, and continued on.
IndyCar Radio on the IMS Radio Network. the Verizon IndyCar Series on IndyCar Radio.
And history is matched as the twin checkered flags come out for our second four-time winner of the Indianapolis 500, Al Unser. Roberto Guerrero comes across the line, finishing 4.4 seconds back. The Penske team scores another victory. Al Unser has won the Indianapolis 500-mile race.
A.J. Foyt now coming down to the white line in turn number 2. He looks kind of happy as he goes through 2 onto the backstretch, and in just a second he'll be up to Chuck Marlowe on his final lap.
Roger Howdy, and he has the backstretch all to himself. Here he comes, A.J. Foyt, number 1, entering up toward that northeast turn, the big wave to all the fans. He's in the northeast, and Mikey Hurt.
We got him here, people waving their hands, waving to him, and he waves back as he takes the turn number 3. One more turn to go to Jim Shelton.
And he's in this turn right now. White car, big goal number 1, happy A.J. There you have what looks like our winner, and I don't think he can miss now. He has about half a straightaway to go, and here's Sid Collins.
Well, nothing should happen now, and here comes the car, the Sheraton Thompson Special, the checkered flag for A.J. Foyt. With the right hand up in the air, waving to the crowd, the winner of the 1964 500-mile race.
And there the checkered flag waving, and Mario Rose is the winner. Rose is the winner of the 31st running of the Indianapolis 500-mile Motor Speedway Classic.
IndyCar Radio on the IMS Radio Network. IndyCar Radio on the IMS Radio Network.
A.J. Foyt down the main straightaway. The checkered flag is out. A.J.'s hand in the air. He is the winner. A.J. Foyt at Indianapolis has won his 4th 500-mile race. A.J. Foyt, our winner. The flag will fly now for Tom Sneva and then for Al Unser. We will be talking with all of these drivers in just a moment.
And we await A.J. Foyt along with a host of others, including Tony Holman, who is cheering as loudly as the crowd. We've seen what has never been seen before, beginning with a woman driving in the field in the morning, and A.J. finishing 4 up front at Indianapolis. Headed into victory lane now, A.J. Foyt in the cleaning Gilmore 14 Coyote, the Gilmore Racing Team, home, and he wins again.
And there's the checkered flag for Mark Donahue, winner of the 1972 Indianapolis 500-mile race.
Oh my goodness, we have 7, 8, 10 cars in a pack headed for one Jerry.
Well, you talk about the crowd getting on their feet. They do. So far, so good. They are nose to tail, a little bit of room. There's about an 8-car pack in front of Gary Lee right now.
Yeah, and in that pack, second place and third place. Little Al has gotten around Jack Villeneuve. He's back up to second, and now 2 cars separate second and third. Mr. Excitement is that youngster, that second-generation driver. We're impressed with Jack Villeneuve, but right now he's dropped to third. And there's Al Unser Jr., and then Bobby Rahal. Jack Villeneuve goes on the outside. He goes right. You can't go too wide in the turns. They're doing it today.
They sure are coming through 4. Now they go single file. Maybe they got a little scared last time. Who knows? But going through 4 this time, everybody single. They come toward the main straightaway, Bob Jenkins.
That was just a breathtaking moment.
This is IndyCar Radio on the IMS Radio Network. This is IndyCar Radio on the IMS Radio Network.
Where else would you rather be than right here, right now, perfectly aligned, back on the main straightaway to call the start of the greatest spectacle in racing, the voice of the 500, Paul Page.
Oh, they came off of turn 4 beautifully. They look for the green flag. The green flag is out. And from the center of the road, James Hinchcliffe pulls away. Power tried to duck over behind him, but Hinchcliffe is in front.
They must have found something with that car because he was not happy with the balance, not happy with the amount of horsepower he could have during that first run. Marco slides that bright yellow and blue Snapple car into pit lane. The fueler will engage the hose and the 4 tire changers will go to work. Marco has charged to the front. His grandfather won in 1969. A good pit stop for Andretti as he exits pit lane.
Hunter Ray slung past on the inside of that Carpenter. Marco Andretti in third, then Scott Dixon, Elio Castroneves. That's the front 5 in a turn number 3, Mark James.
Not sure on restarts that up front is the place to be because of what happens with the slipstream, if you will. And Carpenter right there. Marco Andretti, then Scott Dixon, then Elio Castroneves. Front 5 set sail for the north end. Hunter Ray trying to draft Carpenter going into 1.
And Carpenter on the outside. Ryan Hunter Ray on the inside. Hunter Ray will make the pass again. And Marco Andretti stays in the number 3 spot. He may want number 2.
Guys, Will Power and Carpenter, Marco Andretti. Power beats him out of pit lane. So it's Power, Marco Andretti, Ed Carpenter, followed by J.R. Hildebrand.
And Hunter Ray darts in, moves to the outside as they get the white flag. 1 to go, Jerry.
They are side by side. Elio looks to the outside. Elio will have to take the number 2 spot. He's right on the rear wing of Ryan Hunter Ray.
Hunter Ray looking for number 1. Elio Castroneves looking for win number 4. Ryan Hunter Ray, 8 car lengths in front as they move in the backstretch for the final time.
And Elio make the move 3 laps too early. Does he have anything at all left in the tank? A couple of turns to go. Ryan Hunter Ray leads in Indy.
Turn number 800 is upon us. Less than a car length is the difference. The final turn. Hunter Ray to call the finish. The voice of the 500, Paul Page.
And it is Ryan Hunter Ray that is going to lead Elio Castroneves across the line. Ryan Hunter Ray has his first Indianapolis 500-mile race win. Elio Castroneves will have to wait for another year to get his 4th victory at the Indy 500.
This is IndyCar Radio on the IMS Radio Network.
One, two. Check.
IndyCar Radio on the IMS Radio Network.
John Andretti starts to close into the back of Mansell. So John Andretti, who will drive 2 races in one day, is having one incredible drive here this morning. John Andretti strong, trying to run down the line. Nigel Mansell, a very quiet month. And look here, they almost go 3 wide. Now they get down into single file. And Robbie Gordon now running strong. He had some handling problems early, but Robbie moving up through the field.
As they head through 4, the big battle right now, Boiselle clears traffic and gets through very safely. And everyone again making it through 4 as they head toward 1 and Jerry Baker.
Well, Mansell's found some running room all by his lonesome. Now we were watching Eddie Cheever. Man, he appears to be really flying out there. Oh, we got a bad crash in 1. 2 cars are gathering. We've got a quick flash fire. It is out. Cars dive to the inside. One of the cars up against the outside wall dodges the crash. They are side by side just as we come out of number 1.
Less than half a lap ago. Grody Johncock by 5 car lengths over Rick Mears. They're in the north short chute. Here they come. This is the final quarter lap. Johncock maintains the lead. The voice of the 500, Paul Page. Who's going to win it?
Gordon Johncock off the 4th turn. Mears is right behind him. Johncock. Mears makes a try. Johncock wins it by less than 1/10 of a second. Gordon Johncock has won his second 500. Rick Mears comes across in second place, almost side by side. And you should see the celebration that is taking place in the Patrick Racing pits. An incredible celebration now as they run down toward victory lane. What a finish.
Let's see what happens with the 68. He's going to climb the fence. He is out of the car, and Helio Castroneves climbs the fence in the front straight.
IndyCar Radio on the IMS Radio Network.
Welcome to New Orleans, or Narlands as they call it here. I'm Paul Page. Mark James is alongside. Out on the course, Nick Yeoman, Jake Query. They're going to cover everything going on in the pits as we begin the practice session for the Verizon IndyCars. This is session number 3. Yesterday was a bit of a mixed bag. We had a session in the dry, and then we had a fairly interrupted session that finally got off with the cars spending most of their time on slick dry tires. Those good many of them got a chance to run their wets as well. A last minute couple of adjustments to the race course, going to push back the actual start of the session just a few minutes. We have so much to talk about. What's going on with the new aero kits, which worked so well at St. Petersburg, and some of the changes they've made to them, and then looking ahead to what is going to happen throughout this weekend, and we have a very special guest. We'll have all of that when we come back.
If there's one thing Firestone's learned over its 100 years in racing, is that if you don't keep moving forward, you're going to get left behind. So even though Firestone has more Indy 500 wins than any other tire on the planet, we're always more concerned with what we've done for you lately. That's why we're constantly trying to make our tires stronger, last longer, and handle better than ever. And we bring that same commitment to every tire we make, whether it's for the racetrack or for the open road. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone.
When all was said and done yesterday, it was Tony Kanaan, TK, that came up with the quick time. It is a 1:18.87. Of course, we expect that to improve substantially when they finally take to the track. IndyCar right now putting equipment back into position as they're getting the course ready to go. In the meantime, Mark James, very special guest here today.
Yeah, we're happy to have with us Chief Marketing Officer of IndyCar, C.J. O'Donnell. And C.J., first of all, welcome to New Orleans. Welcome to the broadcast booth this afternoon.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here this afternoon.
I guess we'll start by doing, if you don't mind, a bit of a post-mortem, if you will, on St. Petersburg. I commented when I climbed atop my perch out in turn 10 in front of the Dali Museum that it looked like the crowd was decidedly up. Don't get me wrong, we've never had a bad crowd at St. Pete in all the years that I've been going, but boy, certainly you when we talked about that before we went on the air, you reaffirmed that to be true.
No, we were really pleased with what happened at St. Petersburg. I mean, first, of course, we had a chance to debut the aero kits and show in race trim what these cars can do, and certainly the whole season looks like it's going to be bright with cars going faster and breaking track records at nearly every circuit we go to. That interest, the preseason buzz around the aero kits certainly influenced attendance because we saw numbers that were up over 20%. And that's a positive sign for IndyCar and for the guys at St. Pete that work so hard to bring that race to the market.
Well, I think St. Pete speaks to I think what lends itself to success in terms of scheduling. You hear phrases like date equity. St. Pete has achieved that, and I think it helps when people can pencil that weekend in on a regular basis to start the season.
Well, St. Pete has so much going for it, and starting with a community that really embraces IndyCar, embraces that race, and believes in that date as a way to kick off their spring break season, if you would. When you have a community that's so interested in what we do, it makes the promoters' work a lot easier, and certainly ours a lot easier. And we see each year as we go back that the fans grow and our sport gets stronger.
Now, with coming here, excuse me, Mark, to a brand new circuit and all of the challenges that lie with that, just having met the people here, it's really has been a trip, I'm sure, for you guys. These are terrific people. They've done an incredible job.
Well, we've had great fun with Laney. I know you had him on air yesterday. Kristen, Tim, a lot of the people were engaged in the entire promotion of this race and organizing the event and building this race circuit and making it as spectacular as it's turned out to be. They're just working real hard and fun to work with at the same time. I enjoyed every month of the effort to get here today.
The Verizon IndyCar app this year, they've upgraded, as they always do, a more broader base for it now.
Yeah, we've got a lot of new elements of fan engagement we're hoping to capitalize on as we move in through this season. The app itself has been a wonderful addition, compliments of Verizon. The biggest news probably that you don't have to be a Verizon subscriber to download and use the app. So all those great features that were once limited to a select audience are now open to everybody with a smartphone. And we, I guess I'd have to encourage everybody listening to download now and follow not only on air, but on your smartphone.
Let's expand upon that title sponsorship on the part of Verizon. You look at a lot of title sponsorships in a lot of places, might scratch your head a little bit and say, that's really just not a good fit. But I can't think of any aspect about the association between Verizon and the IndyCar series that doesn't make sense. And CJ, I'm not just talking about enhancing the fan experience, but the technology they can bring to the motorsport side for these teams.
And they're doing that. I mean, they're using us as a platform for technology, bringing innovation and new ideas to our sport to make our sport smarter. They're known for technology leadership. They're known for innovation. And you want to associate with people that think the way they do and advance our business as much as they're promoting their own.
They stepped up their activation before they became a title sponsor. I mean, they were very high profile at all of our events and all of our venues, and certainly that momentum has not slowed since they took over title sponsorship. Talk about how that gives, not that I'm suggesting the series needed it, but does it or does it not give a stamp of credibility when you set about the task to attract even more major sponsors to the series?
First of all, I think the sport does need a great partner like Verizon to promote it. If you think of some of our partners down south, they had a few cigarette companies and later another telecom company that helped promote their growth, and I see Verizon very much being the wind in our sails as we move forward in these coming years. And yes, it gives the sport a certain degree of gravitas and credibility. When you partner with somebody that's as smart in selecting where they activate and who they align with, it makes people stand and take notice, and I think that's helping our sales team quite a bit.
You know, the series in general, and certainly its fans, left last year on a real high. I mean, it was a terrific year, wonderful battle for the championship. What is kind of impressing me is we've seemed to carry that momentum on right into St. Petersburg. Everybody's back up, excited about what we're doing.
Yeah, the sport's got momentum, both on the commercial side and on the track. I think that what we're seeing right now, what happened in St. Peter, guys driving for the championship. We've been promoting this idea of Indy rivals, and I think it was captured in a video we just put out this week. I mean, every one of these guys wants to win, and anyone can do it on any given day, and it just makes the sport so exciting to follow.
Mark and I kind of had an issue, and by the way, we're on hold. They have a little bit of a telemetry issue they have yet to solve with the cars, which is it's such a complex system. It's easy to understand. But Mark and I, we're reading all these releases everybody puts out, and there's some magnificent pictures of IndyCar drivers here for Mardi Gras. Don't you think radio guys in the future ought to escort people on stuff like that? I mean, it seems right, doesn't it?
I did get a chance to join them for a day of that. That was good fun. Yeah, I would encourage that if we can get you here, that you'd like that.
Oh, this is such a great town. Some of our guys were in town last night, and a couple more of us planned to go. This is where a race ought to be. And again, talking with the people here, mirth is one of the words that comes to. There's a whimsy about this place that makes it very happy.
I like that word, mirth. I'm going to use that again. You think about a town that knows how to throw a party, a town that knows how to host a major sporting event, whether it be the Super Bowl or an IndyCar race. This place can make it work, and we thought the best way to make a little noise in advance of the race, help the promoter, help ourselves generate some interest in this market, was to bring a few of our characters down.
Good.
For Mardi Gras. We had them on one of the floats during one of the major parades at several Mardi Gras parties, and really had a great result. The local press embraced them, and I think they embraced the market itself. They had a good time.
Chief Marketing Officer C.J. O'Donnell is our guest here today. We're in a holding pattern again as we get ready for practice session number 3 in preparation for the Grand Prix on Sunday. Some problems with telemetry that crews are working to get those changes taken care of so we can get some green flag practice time in before we go qualifying
also
this
some
afternoon.
Barrier work, too. They're working on one of the tire barriers as it comes on to the pit road, the main stretch here.
CJ, we talked about, of course, this fabulous venue and the fact that it's new to the schedule. Of course, the effort is to expand the schedule and hopefully load it up on the front end a little more coming in after the Super Bowl. You being something that Paul and I aren't a bit more on the inside. Of course, if you read the blogs and things like that, people always have suggestions on, we should be in Phoenix, we should be at Road America, we should be here, we should be there. I don't think people realize what a daunting process that is, and I won't ask you to give away all the secrets, but is that an accurate statement? It's a very daunting process to try to secure an agreement with a new venue?
Well, I'm year and a half on the job here and new to this sport, and I found the process of creating a schedule, watching that process with all my peers. It's a complex monster. There are so many details, whether it be with the local community, with television broadcast, with a promoter that's capable of aligning and bringing an event to market. You got to pull every lever to make this schedule work, and it's proven to be a challenge. But at the same time, we're moving forward with it, and as we get into the 16th season and the 17th season, I think we'll see a longer season as well as a number of new venues to fill out those dates.
You talk about momentum. We shouldn't have much difficulty building momentum once we do get to 2016. I want to watch a great title fight unfold for 2015, but in 2016, the 100th anniversary of the Indianapolis 500, that should be something that we should be able to build momentum off of pretty quickly, don't you think?
Well, we're working on that already.
Sure.
This is a once in 100-year event, right?
Paul was here for the last one, by the way. So he's looking forward to this one.
I feel great about that.
He's going to get you back for that one. We're looking at great excitement. Of course, first job one is to make sure the 99th comes off perfectly.
Absolutely.
And from every measure, we're on track for that. And as we get closer and get more confident that one's in the box, at least from a marketing and sales perspective, get into the next year, and planning's began in January for that event. We've got some additional staff members who are helping with us. Now we hired some great people who are really excellent event planners to make that come off and be bigger than life.
Well, we started preparing for it as well, starting at St. Petersburg and going through this season and into the next season. The historian of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Donald Davidson, is recording centennial moments. He's doing a 90-second to 2-minute moment in history for the Indianapolis 500 in preparation for 2016, and Donald was very excited about the opportunity to do that. As we walk through the paddock here, especially yesterday, certainly before the weather hit, we'll go back to giving these folks the credit that they deserve. There is already a buzz associated with this event, even though it's an inaugural event. Did you get that impression walking through the paddock yesterday?
I started getting that yesterday about mid-afternoon. You get pretty busy when you're working through your day here. There's a lot to be done with the promoter, with the team owners, everyone else, key sponsors, and you occasionally take a moment and pause and just take it all in. You get to look around, and I got a chance to look across the paddock and across the fan village, and there was traffic there that wasn't there first thing in the morning. That makes you know the place is coming alive and the event's going to be successful.
Now, you mentioned a year and a half on the job. Is there any one thing that you can put your finger on that you were totally caught off guard by, something that surprised you? And I'm not saying anything from a negative standpoint. What from a positive standpoint impressed you the most that maybe you weren't prepared for, if you could put your finger on that?
The complexity of this whole thing. You think you understand the sport itself, or you think you understand the marketing side of any business, but when you look at the number of details that need to be worked out to pull off an event of this size, the number of people who have to be coordinated and on the same page to make it successful, the level of teamwork and cooperation that we each have to have, it's impressive. As this sport continues to grow and move forward, it'll be because of the collective effort of everybody in the pit lane, across the paddock, and in the home office back in Indy.
We were talking about that, in fact, on the air yesterday, not just with regard to the teams themselves, but with regard to everybody. I mean, it requires an enormous effort to put one of these events together. A lot of moving parts, actually. The other thing that's kind of gotten my attention, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it seems that on social media, I'm seeing a lot more from the drivers, a lot more interesting information.
Well, we're working on them a bit. It started last year around the Sonoma race. Mm-hmm. We took about 80% of the field to Facebook for a bit of a training program.
Oh, neat.
And they got a chance to look behind the scenes and understand how their systems work and how to better leverage Facebook on behalf of them in the league. And then this year, we're providing them with some incremental assets, whether it be video or still images that they can share, storylines that they may be eager to develop, just to help expand their own efforts, engage with their fans, and of course then grow interest in IndyCar.
Much of what you do, the whole marketing side, involves the metrics. What kind of results were you reaching? What are you getting? How does that work in the social media world for you?
Well, it's easy to track followers. It's easy to track the level of communication in any one of those genres of mm-hmm. social media, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or even YouTube views. We put a metric against each every weekend. We look at how we compare it to the prior year, and we've seen growth 30, 40, 50%, depending on which of those you're trying to make reference to. It's been a good secondary measure of fan engagement, primary being attendance and TV viewership or radio listeners, but it's moving again in the right direction and another sign of our overall health.
One last thing before we let you go. We know your day's very busy, as is your entire weekend, but there are two sides to sponsorship, and in visiting with team owners and crew chiefs and whatnot, you understand this a little better as you start doing a little more digging. When it comes to what sponsorships and motorsports can do, there is, of course, that adage that it increases visibility in a product for the consumer. However, there are also sponsorship opportunities that are more business to business. Can you explain the difference between those two?
Yeah, let's take a shot at it.
Okay.
Business to business is typically more along the lines of using the event itself as a way of bringing people together. You think about maybe the most common idea that people have in their mind of what happens on the golf course, the deals that get done there.
Sure.
It can happen here too, and it's just another great way to engage your clientele, bring them together for an event that's both focused on business as well as sport, and make certain that you build relationships and occasionally close a good deal.
Good. Well, we appreciate your time, and don't make this be the last time we have you in the booth. And we appreciate the short amount of time you've been with the series, the support that you've offered us, and we hope to grow right along with the series.
Well, like I said, teamwork, right?
That's right.
We're all in this together. We're going to make it work.
You got it.
All right, thank you.
Speaking of making it work, the IndyCars are about to make it work as they've just put out the green flag. Of course, there'll be a lap or two as they figure things out, and then we'll see what they can do with times. We're going to go down to the pits, and we're going to begin first with Nick.
That's right, Paul. I caught up with Pat Wright from Racing for Kids. Always doing some good work here at all the locations we're at with the Verizon IndyCar Series. Talk a little bit about where you guys were visiting this week here with Racing for Kids.
Sure. Hi, Nick. Yes, Simona Di Silvestro, the car number 26, led a team of drivers to Oxner Health Systems at their hospital for children on Thursday. Had a great visit. She brought along David Ostrella and also Ken Koch from the Tudor United Sports Car Series. They interacted with about 100 kids, which is a terrific visit. Put a lot of smiles on their faces, and I know the kids felt a lot better about it, and I know Simona has a bunch of new fans rooting for her.
And you said her race car has some signs of those experiences.
Yeah, this is really terrific. Andretti Autosports has Racing for Kids signage on her car along with the Oxner Health System, which of course is a big sponsor of the race itself here. So that's a very special weekend for us.
Seen a lot of kids here enjoying the weekend here in New Orleans at NOLA Motorsports Park. What's your thought of this course and this weekend?
It's a really neat course. It reminds me a lot of the old Cleveland Airport course because there's no seat in the place here. You can't see the whole track. I should also mention that yesterday, working with Andretti Autosports, we brought a bunch of kids from Oxner, the outpatients, to the track for a great day at the track, and Carlos Munoz came over and spent some time with them. So, as I said, it's been a terrific weekend for Racing for Kids.
How important is that, not just for the series, but for Racing for Kids, to come to a new market like this, an inaugural event down here in New Orleans, and really establish some new fans and touch some more lives?
Absolutely. I think you're going to find there's a lot of great racing fans down here, and hopefully this will be a big success for years to come. And it's always great to bring some new fans on board, as I know the folks in the marketing department of the league appreciate.
And you said you guys are at every race, so you'll be in Long Beach in a week, right?
We'll be in Long Beach a week, and Alabama, we go to hospital visit before every race, and we had for our 26 years.
So much good work. Appreciate your time.
Thanks very much, Nick. Appreciate it, man.
And tell us again, Ray, if anyone wants to get involved, they can go to racingforkids.com.
Racingforkids.org, O-R-G, and you can find out a lot more. And if you want to do some volunteer work, we'd be more than happy to have your help.
All right, that's Pat Wright from Racing for Kids. As we mentioned, the cars are on the track, and Jake Query, pretty decent conditions here at NOLA Motorsports Park.
It is warm, it is humid, but not necessarily as humid as it was yesterday. As a matter of fact, right now, the track temperature here at NOLA is 103 degrees. Yesterday, it got up over 110 for the early practice session. The ambient temperature here, 81 degrees, just about 8 degrees warmer than it was for yesterday during the first session. The temperature dropped a little bit last night once the rain fell, and of course the track was wet for just a bit. Now, I realize that obviously people are listening to us both online at IndyCar.com and on the IndyCar 15 app, but for those of you that are here listening to us on the public address, just want to let you know what you will see in terms of the tires and this particular condition. As we look, Helio Castroneves has worked his way off the track in turn number 6. Looks like he's going to get that number 3 Hitachi, try to get it back on course, and I believe he has in fact done so. We'll see if that brings out a local caution. But in terms of the tires here, each team has come to this facility with 11 sets of tires distributed by Firestone. 8 of those are what we call the primary tire, and then 3 of them the softer compound tire with a red ring on it. That softer compound, a little bit broken in, if you will, allows for a faster lap earlier in the set of the tires themselves. But you have to kind of ration off, if you will, when each set of tires are going to be used, because you have to use at least one set of red tires over the course of the race. The tires with tread on them, the wet tires, they are given 6 of those as Castroneves goes off again. 6 sets of wet tires. A lot of teams yesterday thought that they would not actually be using dry tires today. It was expected it would be wet. They saved those wet tires. They get 6 sets of them. And it looks like, Paul, if we have a rainy condition tomorrow for the race, people will have plenty of sets of tires, because I think the thought process was they would have to use a set here in this practice session. I don't think that's going to be the case, knock on wood. So as a result of that, looks like everybody will be in good shape in terms of that.
Well, everybody is up at least 2 laps into the record book, so not really at full speed yet. When you look at the order, it is Montoya, our most recent winner, driving for Roger Penske, who is number 1, and then the reigning Indy 500 champion, Ryan Hunter-Reay, is second quick. And Coletti, a guy that we keep looking at and keeps putting his name up there at the top, he currently sits number 3. But Joseph Newgarden has just made his presence known on the chart as well. And another kid we've been kind of keeping track of is Gabby Chavez, who, that transition over from the Indy Lights car of old to what we have in the IndyCar of today is kind of complicated. It took a little while for all of the guys coming over from that to get their feet under them. It seems like they do now. And the other good news, Mark, is that the new Indy Lights car makes that transition that much easier.
Well, and I think that the stamp of approval on that from the IndyCar series came in the R&D and the testing of that new Lights car. When you can get someone, like Scott Dixon to climb in it and take it for a few laps, or a guy like James Hinchcliffe, I think that shows that there's some elements of this new car that Dan Anderson and his crew have developed that certainly will translate into the Verizon IndyCar series. And I agree with you, Paul. Although let's face it, Jack Hawksworth, who I don't think I'm out of line here in stating that 2 years ago in Indy Lights, Jack made a few questionable decisions as a driver. He was a bit of a head scratcher, and the announcement when it was made that Brian Herta had reached an agreement with Hawksworth for the season was a bit of a head scratcher. Well, Jack did more than quieted his critics throughout the course of the season. So, as you suggest, sometimes with the previous chassis, had been around for so long, not a lot transferred other than just maybe instincts. But this new car changes all that, and it'll be interesting to see how much more quickly these young drivers get up to speed and come up to the Mazda Road to Indy Series.
And if you use Jack Hawksworth as an example, his drive last year for Herta Autosports got him a ride this year with A.J. Foyt's organization, second car alongside of Takuma Sato. By the way, people asking how A.J.'s doing. He's doing great. He's doing so good that a week ago Friday he actually made it into Indy, where they're building their new shop.
Right.
And spent a little bit of time in Indy at the Foyt Wine Vault. Seems appropriate, one of the better medications. And so the good news is Foyt's getting better and better, and we know we're going to see him at Indy, if not sooner. Ryan Hunter-Reay is quick, though he is in the 119s, 119.3. Yesterday, 118.8 was the quickest, and that was set by TK. Let's send you down to Nick.
That's right, Paul. Always love catching up with some of the people that cover the sport, maybe even a little bit closer than I do. We're all pretty in tune. Joined by Tony DeZeno from Motorsports Talk with NBC Sports. Obviously, I think a lot to talk about after the St. Petersburg race, certainly with the aero kits. Your initial impressions of those aero kits and certainly the changes they've made here coming into Nolan the rest of the season.
It's been an interesting start to the year, to say the least. I think the aero kits, everyone was good to see them actually racing for the first time, to actually get closer competition. And I think with it being such a long off season, everybody was anxious to get going. That's probably why you saw so much debris. Everybody ripped on it for being long cautions, but it was kind of in line with the average, about, I think, 5 for 22. It wasn't that bad. It should be better here given the amount of runoff.
Tony, I know you and I have talked heading into this season just how impressive Team Penske was, and they backed it up. So far this weekend, though, is it encouraging, you think, to see some of these other names up at the top of the charts?
It has been, and the guy that I've really been impressed with is Tony Kanaan. He's on such a hot streak compared to last year. 6 of the last 8 races, podiums. He's driving like a man possessed, reborn, essentially. I think there's been a fire lit under him, and he looks like the TK of old.
I know you keep your pulse on some of the lower rungs as well, the Mazda Road to Indy. Some of these rookies, Gabby Chavez in the sport this year, Jack Hawksworth for his sophomore campaign, Sage Karam. What are your thoughts on some of these younger drivers really starting to make their mark in this series?
We're really starting to see guys kind of get comfortable, and this is the first track where many of them have tested before, so they're actually comfortable with the car, comfortable with the aero kits. You saw that with Sage yesterday in practice. Gabby was even not happy, and he still wound up ninth, second quickest Honda, so it's been really good to see the young next generation step up and start to make their first impressions.
All right, let us know again. Where can we find your stuff, your Twitter handle?
I'm at Tony DeZino. We also have an IndyCar on NBCSN Twitter account, which just relaunched, and Motorsports Talk on NBCSports.com. So qualifying later tonight.
All right, appreciate it, and try not to sweat as much as I am down here.
Swamp, man. Thanks, Nick.
All right, that is Tony DeZino from Motorsports Talk on NBC Sports. Paul Page.
Always good to hear from him. We still don't have the speeds we had yesterday, but everybody's slowly working up to it. Joseph Newgarden, though, has managed to move up number one. He's number one with a 1:19.3, followed by Ryan Hunter-Reay and then Gabby Chavez, Coletti. Simon Pagnow sits in fifth. Montoya, Munoz, Ray Hall, Karam, and Hinchcliffe. That's the top 10.
Of course, Marshall's throwing out a surface flag in the area of turn number 8, alerting the drivers that off to the driver's right, just out of the line, there's a piece of debris, so they do need to be aware of that as they make their way through that turn 8 portion of the course.
Marker, yesterday you and I were talking about this turn 1. They say 1 and 10 are probably the key passing areas, and 1, it looks like the officials said, do whatever you want on the exit there now. It's a little bumpy going in. It's a lot of bumpy if you go in on the inside line, a little if you move to the outside. But then everybody is taking an extraordinarily wide exit that takes them way out across the markers and everything. Gives them a lot of speed to set up to make that left-hander coming back. But today it seems like everybody's doing that. And in fact, we saw Elio a few moments ago. You know, old-fashioned, old a la Jimmy Clark and stuff. He was way out there, got that thing to opposite lock, just guided it through and on around the corner. It was beautiful.
Well, and I think yesterday, you know, some penalties were assessed, and I think, you know, they looked at the fact that the prevailing opinion was that was the fastest, safest way through that turn. And so, you know, all bets are off at this point, and they made that adjustment, and now that's a portion of the course that they're going to be allowed to use. I think that turn 1 is going to be pretty daggone exciting when that green flag falls. And, you know, the real estate is going to be at a premium there. And we're going to find out, as we mentioned, the concern with some of the debris and the parts that came off, especially the front wing assemblies on the Chevys and the Hondas. IndyCar announcing this week that they have ordered those manufacturers to strengthen those pieces and parts a little bit. I think it may get its first test when the green flag falls tomorrow.
You think now?
Paul. Yeah, pretty good.
We have about 12 minutes complete in this session. That means there's about 32 yet to go. You know, you and I started, I think everybody in this radio network started to be interested in this with just a driving passion that finally put us involved in the sport in some way, and then finally doing the wonderful jobs that we get to do. We got a guest in the booth who's pretty much the same sort of story. It's Christopher DeHarde, who is local, right from this area, and is so excited about the fact that the Indy cars are here, has a long history of his own, does a lot of writing in it as well with the New Orleans Advocate and also at motorsports.com. So, Chris, now you get to see what we do in radio. I kind of set you up with your incredible memory that you may be the future challenge to Donald Davidson. So impress me with the history of this area.
First professional four-wheel motorsports event held in the greater New Orleans area since 1995. The last time we had something similar to this was the IMSA GTP sports cars downtown New Orleans at the Grand Prix de Mardi Gras. That ran for 3 years in 91, 92, and 95. Now here at NOLA Motorsports Park, the first major event that they had here professionally was the AMA Superbikes here in October of 2012. It was the season finale for that year, and they haven't, unfortunately, didn't go back since. But it's been a fantastic facility for Indy cars.
Let's talk about you, your family, and your passion for this sport and the history there.
Well, my father, my great-grandfather, and my grandfather started going to the 500 back in the late 40s. They were mechanics by trade. My dad started going in 1960. This year will be his 52nd, and this year will be my 20th in a row.
And now you start with your very first year here. Now, let's talk about this event, this setup for this event, because you're here, you're in the community, you know what it feels like. It looks like Tony Kanaan has gotten off in one, and they've got a local yellow out for that. What has been they're going to go red flag because he's in a little bit of a precarious position. What about the local reaction here? How has it been? So far, so good. The New Orleans Advocate sponsoring the event. They have had a lot of coverage over the last few weeks. They've covered the Winterfest with myself being here for that. They've had some articles in the paper the last week and a half or so going for the event. WWL, the local CBS affiliate, has had a couple of their guys out here this weekend as well. Local reaction has been pretty good to this event. It's been pretty positive, I'd say. Okay, now we need the other side for you because Mark James, who sits here, is a huge huge party guy. So
yeah,
we sat
Nick and Jake found that out last night. Sure,
but give us some of the places for the IndyCar guys. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to see? What are the offbeat places?
Well, so of course, New Orleans, one of the big things that we're known for is our food. We do have several different restaurants, not only in New Orleans but in the surrounding areas. Like Drago's, Emerald's, other various seafood places around the area. Café du Monde, of course, they actually have a booth out here with the French donuts, the beignets are called. It's a lot of different other places to go as well. We got the World War II Museum here. We've got a lot of other cool little places around here. The New Orleans Museum of Art. There's a lot of very nice places to go here, not just for the racing fans, but for everybody else as well.
Keep one of my favorite shows no longer on anymore. It was an HBO called Treme, and there we got to learn a bit about the whole social atmosphere of New Orleans, the second line, things like that. Tell me what a second line is and what some of the music aspects are.
So they play a few things like when the Saints go marching in. Sometimes they have the jazz funerals where they celebrate their lives. They have the umbrellas and everything like that. Of course, very popular after the Saints games when they do win. Very, very much an upbeat atmosphere. Whenever they have the jazz funeral, they always have the second line to celebrate their lives and things like that. It's just a little bit of kind of one of the things that makes New Orleans such a great city for someone to go to, that they're not looking to experience something that they usually do.
Well, Chris, thank you very much for joining us here and giving us a little travel. Hopefully we'll get you back at some time in the near future.
I'm always ready and willing.
All right, perfect. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Chris. Good job.
You. So they have the red flag out. It was put out because Tony Kanaan got off in one, and that's the area that, of course, is getting more and more and more of our attention as things go on, and no doubt will. And there have been some changes. In just a moment, hopefully we'll have the opportunity for Derek Walker, who, of course, the responsibility of keeping all this thing functional lies in his hands. And so, Derek, I'm going to hand you a headset, and after this break, we're going to come back, and we'll be talking with Derek Walker.
If there's one thing Firestone's learned over its 100 years in racing, it's that if you don't keep moving forward, you're going to get left behind. So even though Firestone has more Indy 500 wins than any other tire on the planet, we're always more concerned with what we've done for you lately. That's why we're constantly trying to make our tires stronger, last longer, and handle better than ever. And we bring that same commitment to every tire we make, whether it's for the racetrack or for the open road. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone.
And we are back, we are live, and we are at the Indy Grand Prix of New Orleans. So many good people are involved in this event. It's been so much fun so far. We are under a red flag. Tony Kanaan was the cause of the red flag. And Jake, what's the story there?
They just brought in that number 10 NTT data machine of Tony Kanaan. Doesn't look like any structural damage. They did take a look underneath the nose of the car to make sure that everything was A-OK, and it appears as though that is the case. They are, as they usually do, taking a look now. It looks like the arm in the rear of the machine to see if the balance got thrown off by that number 10, but I think everything's going to be okay. They're adjusting the springs, and everything here was relatively calm and relaxed when Kanaan came in, so I think he probably just in that turn overdrove it a little bit, got loose, but fortunately I think that number 10 machine is going to survive any sort of both cosmetic and, of course, more importantly, structural damage. So I would say it won't be long before we see Tony Kanaan back out onto this course.
Thanks, Jake Query. I'm not even sure how this guy has figured out how to do this, but Derek Walker is in charge of the whole operational side of the IndyCar. Of course, vast experience as a team manager, as a mechanic back through Penske and further, had his own team, and it's just like the perfect guy to do the job that he has to do, which is grab the whip and in some way keep all of this in order. We were talking earlier about how many balls are in the air and how many moving parts. Good to have you with us. Let's talk this race, though. Brand new race, brand new circuit, a lot of good people working, but how difficult is it, Derek?
Well, new tracks, because they are new, are always a lot more work. But I'd have to say the folks here in New Orleans have just wanted it so badly to do well and to make it right that, going through all of the what needs to be done, what will it be like, how will it make better racing, all that process has been meaningful. And I think you look at the product now for the first event, looks a great great racetrack. They've prepared it well, and we just hope all the fans here in New Orleans come out, because they deserve to give them the support here, because they've done such a good job.
One thing that we've been looking at throughout the practice is that turn 1 complex. The right-hander brings them back to 2. I suspect that was the subject of a number of conversations. Where is that now?
Yeah, we had probably a good number of conversations on that one. What the real issue was is when we looked at the track, it has a few different designs there that you can have our cars run and different configurations. And what we wanted to do in turn 1 was to tighten it up a little bit, so when you come down to the corner, you've got a downshift, and it's a hard braking, overtaking opportunity. But the surface there turns out to be a little bit more bumpy and uneven, so the hard braking to overtake became very difficult. And so we had in place that to stop the cars running wide on the exit, because when you run wide on the exit, you can actually run a higher gear, so you can go through there pretty quick. So overtaking was not going to happen. So we tightened it up, and we hope they'd be able to brake on that bumps. But the bumps are a little bit too much for the hard braking, overtaking. So we've opened up and said, okay, run wherever you like. But we're going to be back with the promoters, and it doesn't take a lot, but just to tighten up that corner, because that's a key overtaking spot that we think will be great for IndyCar.
So when you say we, who is involved in that decision-making process when a decision like that, when a change is made? I don't want to say on the fly, but when a change is made in assessing what happened in a practice session to the next session?
Well, IndyCar ultimately decides the final configuration.
Sure.
And obviously we have talked to the track and had a lot of discussions about how to make it better in a lot more areas than just one. And we thought we had the solution there. Time ran out and the track didn't get ground in turn 1. So we couldn't get the braking we needed, so we had to back up from there and then open it up. So we'll have to come back to that later. But ultimately it's IndyCar, but we work closely with the promoter because, it's a joint venture in a way. We're all in it together. And all we want for both parties, we want the race to be a success and the fans enjoy it.
It sounds to me like this is a venue who, when you come seeking answers to a question, they seem so receptive to the point, Derek, that it's almost, hey, what do you need us to do, and we'll do it.
Yeah, very much so. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is when you look at this facility, for what they've done here, I'm not going to even guess what they've put in it financially. And so when you see that kind of investment, you see a promoter who really wants to make a success. So we support them every bit of the way, and I think they've done a hell of a job here.
IndyCar in general did a remarkable thing over the winter. They came up with the entirely new aero kit designs, 2 different, one for Chevrolet, one for Honda. Will Phillips, Tino Belli obviously burned a lot of midnight oil to come up with that, and it's truly remarkable to go from a plain piece of paper to come up with a part that finally the teams got. Everything really seemed to go together quite well. But then we got to St. Pete, and we saw a little more contact with Sebastian Bourdais saying, you guys need to learn not to hit stuff. It might make this work a little bit better. But what since then have you done? I know there's been some enhancements to the different parts and strengthening.
Well, to answer that, let me, if I may, take a little bit of time to explain the process. What we said to the manufacturers, these areas of the car, there's an imaginary box in like 3 or 4, 5 different places. You can design whatever you like as long as it fits in that imaginary dimensional box. So until the manufacturers turned up with all their kits, we didn't know what they'd come up with, and there's different variations. And they've taken it to the next step and increased the downforce quite a bit. But in the process of doing that, it's a lot more fragile than what it was. And you want the performance, you want the individuality of the Chevy versus a Honda, but clearly as a driver you've got to realize that stuff you've got in the front, when it works and when it's still there, is giving you a heck of a benefit, so you better protect it. And the drivers, unfortunately it was a street race, they came out, and typically at the first street race these drivers sort of come out of the winter like gangbusters, and there seemed to be a bit more aggression than was necessary. However, when you looked at the incidents and the amount of parts that dropped off or were knocked off, you can't just say, well, that's okay, you drivers have got to drive it better. You've got to say to the drivers, you've got to think about this, guys, because it's really hurting you, hurting the show, and the fans, what do they want to watch all these yellows for? So we also talked to the manufacturers and said we need to find a little bit more rigidity or stiffness in some of these parts so they don't knock off every time, have a little bit of an incident. Last year we were spoiled. The Dallara built quite a strong package, and when you don't have competition, you can afford to do that. But when you get competition, you've got weight and you've got downforce, and that means you've got a lot more complicated piece this year. But we've beefed it up for here. We asked the manufacturers to give us their recommendations of what they do, and Honda had a few more than Chevy, and they got on the gas, and it was a holiday weekend, a day we remember not that long ago, but they were flat out, and they've got every car now with some stiffening pieces onto their aero kits that hopefully time will tell, but it proves that they're not quite so easy to drop off when somebody looks at them real serious in the corner.
I had suggested to Paul that I don't know that maybe just by the difference in the style because of the course itself, Derek, I quizzed as to whether or not this would be a true test of that, or next week at Long Beach would be a true test.
Oh, I think Long Beach. I think you know the answer to that one.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a completely different kind of track, and physical contact is not necessarily what makes it win here. Whereas when you get on a street case, you've definitely got to get physical.
But I'll further your point that you made as part of that answer. I know, being out on the course the past couple of years, this new chassis, I won't say it was indestructible, but boy, they could lean on each other a lot with that car.
They could, and that was good. I guess hopefully over time this current aero kit gets beefed up and more, and it can sustain a little bit. But we're not by definition a contact sport. There's supposed to be a certain amount of sophistication and skill goes into this.
Sure.
If we really want to actually be able to do that seriously, then we should start issuing bumper bars for these boys and let them get on with it, because, this is quite a sophisticated piece of carbon fiber they've got there, and, they need to be taken care of, and that's the name of the game.
Sure.
Looking down the order, to just take a second away from Derek Walker, who is with us, Scott Dixon has finally moved into the 118.9 area. Not as quick as yesterday that we saw out of TK, the first car to actually do that. So we are beginning to see some of the times come in. Dixon, Pagenaud, Will Power, Gabby Chavez, the rookie, and then Joseph Newgarden, followed by Bourdais, Hinchcliffe, Kanaan, Ryan Hunter-Reay, and Sage Karam, another one of the rookies. So part of what you have done, Derek Walker, over a year now in place is changed a lot of the nature of race control. You've got some very interesting input, other drivers, people who are looking at the same situations. Can you tell us a bit how that works, as opposed to one guy having to say, I'm not sure what it is, but let's go with that?
Well, as a competitor looking at how it worked, it seemed a little bit the power resided with fewer people, in some cases one person. And I didn't, as a competitor, think that was necessarily a good way to do it. So when I joined IndyCar, I spent a lot of time just watching how it worked. And it wasn't that it was all bad, but it was a different system. It was the dictatorship kind of model. And obviously, having looked at other racing series, I saw how, for example, Formula One did it. And I had an opportunity from some friends in there to sit in race control, really sample it. And I thought that was a better way for IndyCar to go. It's not that it was bad, but I think it needs to be different. And I think if I'm a competitor and we've got IndyCar running the races, calling the races, but over to the side here we've got three independent individuals who have some driving experience, and those three have to look at these incidents and decide whether they think that's a penalty. And we have to define what IndyCar expects, so these officials, these stewards, can look at it and say, well, the rule says this, and it's very clear, and because the rule says this, is he guilty or is he not? And then there's the next phase, which is the penalty. And we have developed a series, we call them guidelines, of which a minimum penalty, a maximum penalty, and a more severe penalty. And so when you look at the rule that you say may or may not be broken, you have to pick one of those three. So you can't just have a different penalty every week. It's got to be one of those, and the level of severity decides which level you go for. And again, the three stewards have to say, I think it's a mid or I think it's a max, and that's what it goes with. So it's an air of independence. If I'm a competitor, it's like a judge versus a jury. It's a different system, but it's working very well, and we've got some good people up in race control, and they're all, I think it's complemented what they do.
I was talking with Danny Sullivan, the 1985 winner of the Indianapolis 500 the other day, and he does that for F1.
That's right.
And he says it's really a good program because it does have a balance in it. So obviously he at least approves of it.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say I live my life with Danny's approval, but thank goodness Danny's given it. I've got one thing right today anyway.
Well, we don't see standing starts this year. But what about other changes? What are you looking for down the future this year and in the future? Is there some specific goal?
Well, that's a good question, Paul. If you look at the immediate future, we've taken a big bite out of, it's the aero kit. We've moved to car competition. So managing that both from a competition standpoint, a supply, a financial standpoint, and how the rules change in the future to allow us to continue to develop that model without bankrupting everybody. So that's a big immediate future. Obviously, you talked about race control. Well, we've only got half of what we're going to do. The people side of it's one side, but we need a lot more of a network that really sees more and gives us better data to make the decision. So advancing race control. But, when you look at one of the big must-dos, it's how do we communicate to our race fans? How do we... There's so much sort of stuff going on, as you well know, behind the scenes that the fan can never ever get to, and he comes to a race and he stands in the grandstand and he might see a few bits and pieces of information, but he doesn't know enough. And now everybody's living their life on an iPhone or some device, electronic device. We've got to take, and Verizon's a great partner with us on that, and transitioning that information, those views, those unique angles, and giving the fans more of what they need to see, what they want to see, because there's a whole generation, younger than us, by the way, Paul, that, it's hard to believe, but that younger generation is into that, and if they don't get it, they're not gonna be here. So communicating with the fans, and for Indy, we certainly hope to have the first of moving down that road. Nothing wasn't originated here. It came out of Tudor Racing. I give ALMS, I'll give them the credit there. And of course, that's the car positioning display. Yeah, our target, the displays are being made now.
Can you describe what that is to us?
Absolutely. It's a number. And so there's a display that shows a number. And so if you're a fan... On the car. And so if you're a fan watching that car go by and you see that number, it's an electronic number, and it changes as the car's position changes, but it highlights to the fan what position is in. And you, of course, watching the Indy 500 or commentating in the Indy 500, if you don't have this flat screen to tell you exactly who comes out of the pits and who they are and where they are, you're lost. You're waiting until that timing gets updated. Well, the fans will be able to see that, and the minute the car changes a position, that number will change, and so the fans can say, okay, now he came out of the pits and he's now fifth, so he went up or he went down or whatever. So it's just the first step, and the addition to that we think we'll be able to do soon. But if somebody's pressing a push to pass, if that number is, highlighted in a different way, so now the fans are looking at it and say, oh, look, he's on the push to pass. Oh, the other guy's doing it too. So it just gives them a bit more insight what's going on. So communication with the fans and opening up what we've got to give them an insight of what racing's really all about nowadays.
That sounds like a great idea coming from a turn announcer who's out on the course that doesn't always have
he
time
never
scoring available. That'll come in very handy, Derek.
Well, and that is, as radio has evolved, back from when I first originally worked in it, we were just a bunch of stations and we did a race. And now IndyCar radio of today with the IMS radio network, we're on all these different platforms on the internet. We're global.
Absolutely.
We're on XM and Sirius satellite radio, and everything we can do to get the information out, and maybe critical, the most important of those at times like this is that Verizon app, because we're there as well.
Verizon has huge potential, and they're developing their multitask system with NFL and IndyCar. So we're right there with them, and we just can't get there quick enough. And they're a key element of our future, communication with the fans.
Derek Walker, can't tell you how great it is to have you come in, spend some time. We know you're busy, know you're tied up. Mark's got one more play. Watch it, because
before we let you go,
puts the stinger in at the
tricky
end.
question.
We're on the internet, Derek, so it's okay to use four-letter words. I want to ask you about the decision-making process. Let's face it, the forecast is not a lot to be optimistic about. So, from a safety standpoint, how do you assess when it is? I know we've got a lot of rain tires here. Firestone brings a great product, but how will you make that determination?
Well, when you look at what happened yesterday, obviously that no man could ever race in those torrential conditions.
Sure.
And there was lightning in the air, so we have to think of the fans and the TV guys and everybody that's out there in the infield. They need to be protected. So that would certainly be an easy decision. But when you look at the racetrack, there's a couple of areas where it puddles, so there's like in the corners where the water builds up.
Sure.
And if it's not too severe, the drivers will drive around it. But if it's really quite large puddle, then when you get in that, I don't care what rain tires you got, you're going to aquaplane. And at these speeds, it's pretty critical. So we would probably look at dressing those couple of areas. There's not many, and then let them have at it. In fact, we made an attempt yesterday to drive the track out a bit because it looked like it was, too much water.
Sure.
And we got hell from the drivers. They were beating the hell out of us later in the day, saying, let it stay wet because it's probably going to be a wet race. We want to practice. And usually you sort of have to, give them a bribe to get them out there in the rain. But they realized this might be a wet race and we need to learn. So I think we're okay. If it gets a bit of a rain, it'll be a more interesting race, I think, arguably. But the standing water in the corner might be the only time we put a yellow on and get out there. And last point is we had a call around to our NASCAR friends. Those are the guys with the steel roofs.
Sure, we've heard of them.
Taxi cabs, as I call them. Sorry, NASCAR, I was only kidding. But we phoned around and we found over at Texas, Eddie Gossage happened to have one of these air tighten devices, and so we said, can we borrow it? Can we have it? So they said absolutely. So
great.
We had it trucked over here just in case, and we've got a vacuum cleaner. We've got every device known to man. So I think we'll get the track back again, and if it gets submerged, then we'll get the race in.
Derek Walker, President, the operations side of this whole thing, the guy who everybody blames or everybody praises.
Somebody's got to do it
at the same time. So thanks for coming up and
joining
joining us.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoy the weekend.
We'll see you again soon. Thanks, Derek. Take care. All right, so with Derek Walker telling us a great deal about how the system operates here, and with us moving to the closing minutes now, not a great deal of change, not actually a great deal to report in terms of how the numbers have gone. Right now it is Scott Dixon who is number one, and only two others have been able to get into the 118 area. That's been Charlie Kimball and Gabby Chavez. Kimball at a 118.8 and Chavez at a 118.9. Ryan Hunter-Reay is fourth, 119.01, followed by Pagano and then Hinchcliffe, Coletti, Power, Bourdais, Newgarden. That's your top 10. And Mark, I keep watching even while Derek's sitting here, and he told us a lot of good stuff, you got to admit. Watching that turn one, and it almost seems like the ripple coming into it becomes a little more severe. That may be because they've changed mechanical traction a bit to try to adjust to it. But then that swing way wide. I mean, I'm going to put my own grandstand right down in that area.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the most exciting portion of the course. There's no question, especially once that green flag drops. And it might be quicker and easier, as Jake Query will be out there calling the action on race day, for him to describe the cars that weren't involved in some sort of contact or some sort of melee down there. Could be totally wrong about it, but it just now that they've pretty well allowed the drivers to, hey, you know what, go wherever you want to go. We'll work with the promoter and see if we can't get that situation rectified next year. now that they've taken that mindset, that's going to make for a very interesting start to this race tomorrow afternoon.
And, you can't imagine the pressure that Derek pointed out that it used to be one man. In the day, Tom Dinford, Harlan Fengler at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and the chief stewards who've come since then, who were making the calls literally on their own, and what complex calls they are. And now as the speeds increase, how much more complex they actually become. You got to give credit to a group that sits there and many times takes the abuse, but they have the passion. They get it right.
Well, oftentimes, very seldom, if ever. I don't care if it's a stick and ball sport or a motorsports event. I can't ever remember a time when anyone walked out of a stadium or a venue and said, you know what, that was really well officiated tonight. I really enjoyed watching those guys. I mean, it's a thankless job, no question, and everyone thinks that they can do it. But fact of the matter is, I think they have come up with a formula that is successful. Sure, there are going to be decisions at times that are unpopular, but I agree with you. Some people believe in the benevolent dictatorship. I think others, as you suggest, prefer to maybe take that out of the hands of one person. And why not use the technology that a partner like Verizon is now providing to the series.
Well, and the different mental approaches. A driver sees it differently than a corner worker, et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, I was raised by an American League Baseball umpire, Harry Geisel, who would always say, I'm always the dumbest man in the park. I don't know why, but officials put up with it.
The most important thing, though, I think, Paul, above everything else, is consistency. Yeah. I think that is a must, and I think that more than anything else will quiet the critics, no matter the sport, when it comes to officiating.
We have to give a shout out too, because you don't put an event, a road course event on like this without a lot of help, especially in the corner workers. And got a lot of SCCA workers who have come over from Houston and down from Atlanta to augment the local SCCA region to make these corner stations all work. And they're out there. The rain yesterday, the wet, the cold, the hot, and they just stay. You got to give credit to the SCCA gang, as you do to everybody who comes and becomes part of this, especially those guys.
Yeah, and a lot of fluorescent green shirts around here with track volunteers and track workers. It's an orchestrated effort that takes a lot of people, and you heard the Chief Marketing Officer for IndyCar Series, C.J. O'Donnell, who joins us earlier, and of course Derek Walker kind of touched on it in terms of the promoter saying, hey, what do you need us to do? The city, the state, the county, all behind this event and all behind this venue, and I would like to see this again become one of those marquee events like we have seen at other places like St. Petersburg here on the Verizon IndyCar Series schedule.
Now with just under 3 minutes to go, and now two cars have eclipsed the time Tony Kanaan set yesterday of 1:18.8. They are Dixon and now Gabby Chavez. He's in there with a 1:18.7, and Karam is a 1:18.77. So those guys all quicker now than TK with the session running out and qualifying coming up next. As you look ahead to that, Mark.
Yeah, it's interesting, Paul, as competitive as it normally is. I mean, we saw it at St. Petersburg a couple of weeks ago. This qualifying format, you can go pretty far past the decimal point and see a level of frustration on a driver's face and their expressions and their comments post-qualifying that may lead you to believe that they're starting somewhere around 21st or 22nd. But I think you talk about formats that have been developed over a period of time that have added a lot of drama to the weekend and a lot of intrigue. I think it's an outstanding qualifying format, and I think it's spot on, and it's always an exciting time over the course of the weekend to watch that unfold.
Well, and for those of you, especially here in the New Orleans area, may not be familiar with that, we're going to start out, it's a 24-car field. We divide that in half, two groups of 12. And then they go out and run, and the quickest 6 out of each combine for a single group of 12 now. And they go out and run again. And out of that, we pull 6. We call that the Fast 6. And then from that group, we determine who is going to be the pole sitter. James Hinchcliffe in turn 6 just got it spun around. Wait to see if he can get it going. We're running into the final seconds, though, 1 minute and 10 left to go in the session. At 6, by the way, that complex they're going to go red flag on it. That complex kind of interesting because to narrow that corner, they put a bunch of cones out across the track to push the cars further out. Now, they tried that years ago, not IndyCar, but then CART tried that at the airport at Cleveland for the first turn because they were having trouble with the starts. And those cones lasted from the green flag for maybe 6 seconds until they actually got there.
Yeah,
we'll see how much use is done down there tomorrow.
We've seen those alterations made with cones in the past in different places, Paul, and they typically are no match for an IndyCar.
And if you do, by the way, it's red and checkered that they are putting out now, so the session is over. A lot of people who have a little bit of history in the sport are making a very favorable comparison of this circuit to the old Burke Lakefront Airport in Cleveland. And the advantage being that almost anywhere you sit, you can see the entire racetrack. It may be a distance. You might need to be careful to bring your extra pair of binoculars, but it's a pretty good place to get a view of everything.
Huge benefit for the fans, and no matter where you sit in the grandstands, if you can't see all of it, you can certainly see a fair portion of it, and a lot of the grandstands up near the main area, the paddock and whatnot, Paul, let's face it, you're going to get a lot of action, not only on pit road, but you're also going to get a lot of action of some of the fastest portions of the race course. So the layout, I think, in terms of fan enjoyment is just absolutely tremendous. And the only we're all going to do the rain dances, keep our collective fingers crossed that we get that 2.5 hour, 3 hour dry window tomorrow afternoon so these drivers can put on a great show for these loyal and dedicated fans. Great crowd here today. Great crowd here today, Paul, after a really good crowd yesterday.
Yeah, and they stuck around, which was what it's not every time you have rain. There also, by the way, is a great go-karting track here that is very, very active. And Wally Levitt, who is our general manager of the IMS Radio Network, brought in a map of what the future may in fact be. And they may actually take the current course and mirror it. So they have two entirely different courses, and then put condominiums in. Now that's been very successful outside of Salt Lake City at Tooele. They have the same kind of track, and I think Wilson, who designed this track, was part of that. And they have one down south of Pennsylvania, same sort of design. Very popular. Garages, you can then put your condo together and have a great time every weekend, no matter who's running.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about Alan Wilson. He designed Miller Motorsports Park in Utah, and also designed Barber Motorsports Park that we'll visit in a couple of weeks. And he was involved in the development and the design of this facility as well. So that'd be great. We saw that long-term master plan, and it looks very, very promising. And I'll say this coming in, Paul. There's plenty of room for development out here on these 700 and some odd acres. Gabby Chavez, the rookie, in the number 98 machine for Brian Herta, had a pretty good practice session, Nick Yeoman.
And he is the 2014 Indy Lights champion, ends up third on the speed charts. Gabby, impressive run. How's the balance on that 98 car?
Really good. I mean, everyone in the team's been doing a great job. We've had a lot of progression over the first race weekend and some testing, and here now. So, I mean, we knew we had the potential. It's just a matter of, getting the amount of laps and miles we need to keep progressing, keep taking steps forward.
Certainly a lot of learning to do. What's the transition been like from Indy Lights to IndyCar?
It's been good, but it hasn't been easy. It's a complete different animal. You're dealing with more weight, a lot more downforce, a lot more power, more braking power. So it's a complete different car, but I have a great team behind me to help me make that transition as smoothly as possible. And, I think we're finally starting to come into our groove.
All right, good run for Gabby Chavez. Ends up P3 on the charts. Let's go back to Paul and Mark in the Firestone Racing booth.
Well, let's give you a little idea of what to expect, and then in just a moment, Mark Janes can give us the full rundown of the field at the conclusion of the third practice session. A little later this afternoon, I'm going to give these to you in Eastern times at 5:10. That's, of course, 4:10 local here in New Orleans. We will have IndyCar qualifying. Davey Hamilton will join us, and the whole group will be heading out to the turns. That includes your Mark. You're going to have a great position to look from down toward the final turns of the course. Jake Query will be up watching that turn number 1. And then, of course, Nick Yeoman, Jake, they'll be there watching the whole thing. And that's at 4:10 local, 5:10 in the Eastern zone. Then tomorrow, Sunday, the warm-up is at 12:30 Eastern time, noon Eastern time, 11 here local, and that's for 30 minutes. And then Guess what? Locally, 2 o'clock, Sunday afternoon. That's 3 o'clock Eastern. It is the very first event here, the IndyCar Grand Prix of Louisiana.
Relatively trouble-free session, Paul Page, this first session of the day for the IndyCar Series as they get ready to go qualifying. Scott Dixon, Simon Pagenaud, Gabby Chavez, Will Power, and Sage Karam, your top five, all of those in the 118s. Also in the 118s, Carlos Munoz, Joseph Newgarden, Tony Kanaan was quick yesterday, 8th quick today. Charlie Kimball, his teammate, right behind him at a 118.8. Then Sebastian Bourdais, the top 10 all in the 118s. Then Ryan Hunter-Reay, James Hinchcliffe, Coletti, Montoya, Rahal, Huertas, Felipe, Castro-Neves, Andretti, Simona Di Silvestro in the top 20, along with Hawksworth, Jake, Sato, and Draconi. Jake Query.
You had just mentioned Simona Di Silvestro, and Simona, the reality is, I'm guessing that obviously there's still some speed out there that you're trying to find. Is it frustrating, or do you feel like you have a pretty good idea where it is? It's just a matter of being able to find two.
No, I think we're struggling a little bit, to be honest. I think also we haven't really had any really super clean laps on new tires, but definitely not where we want to be. And it's a bit frustrating because it's just not there right now, so hopefully we can lean a little bit on Carlos because he seemed to be okay, and Ryan, and also driving wise, see what we can learn from that.
When you come to a new team, benefit being, of course, as you mentioned, you have teammates where you can look off of and learn off of and that kind of thing. But how long realistically does it take to build the camaraderie, the chemistry with the engineers, get to know the team, and really get the car so that they know really what's best for your style?
Yeah, well, it takes a little bit, and especially I think we feel it a little bit here because I'm the only one who hasn't tested here. So, we got here, I was learning the track and also learning, what we need in the car. And definitely we've been leaning a lot on our teammates. And, that's a good thing on weekends like this. But for sure you would like to come here and know exactly what you want and work from there. But it is the reality right now, and we just have to keep digging at it. And hopefully in qualify we'll be okay.
Okay, lastly, on a scale of 1 to 10, if knowing the track perfectly and instinctively was a 10, where are you right now with this track?
No, I think I know, where it goes and all that now. I think no more now it's getting the car to where we I like, how to drive it. And right now we're kind of trying to find that. And I think that's the biggest kind of little bit of issue we're having right now.
Good luck in qualifying.
Thanks.
Simona Di Silvestro now in her second race with Andretti Autosport.
Thanks, Jake Query. And so that does it for us here. We have completed our practice sessions, all three of them, though the second had a little bit of an issue, but it finally got going. We have a good idea of what the numbers are and will be, and we're going to go qualifying a little later today. That will be coming up Eastern Time at 5:10. IndyCar, that shootout qualifying for the Verizon IndyCars. We will see you then.
IndyCar Radio on the IMS Radio Network.
A.J. Foyt down the main straightaway. The checkered flag is out. A.J.'s hand in the air. He is the winner. A.J. Foyt at Indianapolis has won his fourth 500-mile race. A.J. Foyt, our winner. The flag will fly now for Tom Sneva and then for Al Unser. We will be talking with all of these drivers in just a moment.
And we await A.J. Foyt along with a host of others, including Tony Holman, who is cheering as loudly as the crowd. We've seen what has never been seen before, beginning with a woman driving in the field in the morning and A.J. finishing 4 up front at Indianapolis. Headed into victory lane now, A.J. Foyt in the gleaming Gilmore 14 Coyote, the Gilmore Racing Team, home, and he wins again.
And there's the check flag for Mark Donohue, winner of the 1972 Indianapolis 500-mile race.
Oh my goodness, we have 7, 8, 10 cars in a pack headed for one Jerry.